What do you think about the Athletic report that Kyrie and the Nets are at an impasse and that Kyrie could leave Brooklyn?
What? There is zero chance that Kyrie Irving plays for another team next year other than the Brooklyn Nets.
Wow.
Zero. Like, all this is fabricated. All this is, it's made up. To me, this is negotiation tactics. This is, hey, trying to squeeze and get a little bit more money. If that's the Nets being a little bit unsure, what are amendments in your contract that we can make sure that you play a certain amount of games. But, like, to me, this whole thing is, like, first off, Kyrie would not play for the New York Knicks. Kyrie had a chance to play for the New York Knicks earlier. Kyrie didn't want to play for the New York Knicks. All of a sudden, Kyrie wants to play for the New York Knicks.
Kyrie and me are going to bond over that eventually, I'm telling you.
Exactly. That's not going to happen. Sorry, New York. Not going to happen for the Knicks organization.
Yeah.
Kyrie and the Lakers, the whole LeBron James scenario. I get that their relationship has mended to a degree. But you're telling me if you're Rob Pelinka and if you're Jenny Buss, you're going to bring Kyrie Irving over to Darvin Ham in his first year for the Lakers organization, and the amount of how it takes to hit the ground running, you're going to do that to the Lakers? No, you're not going to do that. And the amount of disservice it would do to Kevin Durant, Kyrie's brother, who they came over together as a package deal, what it would do to that relationship more so than anything will be out of this world. There is no way in hell Kyrie Irving plays for another team other than the Nets next year.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless.
Don't believe it.
Key, Jay, listen to what Kendrick Perkins said on First Take about what Kyrie means to KD.
They better find a way to get the deal done and find a way to keep Kyrie Irving. Because I'm going to tell you something. A brother that's probably not happy right now is Kevin Durant. And it's not that he's pissed off with Kyrie Irving. He's pissed off with the Brooklyn Nets. Look, I'm telling you this right now, Stephen A. If I'm KD and the Brooklyn Nets don't get this deal done with Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving leaves the Brooklyn Nets to sign with somebody else, like the Lakers and LeBron James, if I'm Kevin Durant, I want out. And I want out fast.
And that may be true. Kevin Durant may want out, and the Lakers may try and pursue Kyrie Irving, and it'll take a lot. It's a lot that they have to do to get the money to clear up the salary cap and all those sort of things. But in the end, Kyrie Irving has a decision to make, and he's got to make a decision that's good for him. And I know what you're saying, Jay, that there's zero chance. No, there's always a chance to go somewhere else, because even though you know that relationship is strong, they both got to do what's best for them. They've already tried it. What, it's been 3 years now? 2 years going on 3?
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked out to their benefit at all whatsoever. Now, you say that the New York Knicks, he didn't want to sign with the New York Knicks, which is probably true. But wasn't there a different regime in the front office at the time? And you know how Uncle Wes can get. Uncle Wes could be very influential in terms of chopping in somebody's ears and getting them to do some things from a basketball standpoint that may benefit the New York Knicks or anybody else when he's involved in those teams. So I look at it to say, if I'm Kyrie and I have a relationship with LeBron James and I know that I've won with LeBron James, I tried to win with KD, I won with LeBron James, and if I can get my money without all the other things that potentially could be going on with the Nets saying, well, I don't want to pay you this based on something, why wouldn't I look to leave? Why not?
I don't see it happening. And if you want to bring back the past 3 years, I know that people have built up a book of evidence against Kyrie that tries to make him seem like he's not a guy that's going to be there when it's all said and done. But if you want to go back to the insurrection on January 6th, that was an unprecedented event, right, in which he took time. The pandemic, COVID, like unprecedented event that he took time because he didn't want to get vaccinated. Even going back to the bubble around George Floyd and what was happening with this country. There were a lot of things that people stood up for over the past 3 years, and people were trying to build that into the argument about why Kyrie is not reliable. At the end of the day, this comes to Kyrie and KD's relationship, Key. If their relationship is on par, you can make the money work, even if there are stipulations in the deal.
Here's my question. Let me ask this. So why is KD positioning stuff through the media about Kyrie? Does that indicate to me, if Perk comes out and says, hey, KD is going to leave if da-da-da-da-da with Kyrie. That's not coming from nowhere. Why is KD, like, does that mean that he has gone to the Nets and said, hey, I want Kyrie here. Let me be very clear. And they're like, well, we got to do what we got to do. Or is that KD like, I'm probably not supposed to interfere directly in negotiations. Let me call some people I know in the media to let them know how I'm feeling. You know what I mean?
So you think KD planted a seed to grow so Perk could say that, opposed to Perk
I'm not saying where Perk heard it from. I don't know. I have no idea where Perk got it from. But when I see, if I hear Jay, Will, or Perk, or someone who talks to people say, hey, you know something? Let me tell you what I think. I listen very closely because they're not usually pulling it out of the thin air.
Okay.
I used to say this on First Take with Stephen A. If he would say something, I would tell people. I'd stop the show. I'd say, hold on, everyone. Listen very closely to what Stephen A. is saying. He talks to a lot of people. He's not just inventing this, right? That's why I'm asking. For when I start to hear things in the press about players from sources who used to ball, who talk to a lot of people, etc., I listen very closely. And to me, what I'm hearing is KD feels he either can't, or he doesn't want to go directly to the Nets and say, put the brakes on this thing.
Real quick before we go to break.
Yeah.
Through all the chaos that has been around Kyrie Irving, that's been manufactured by the media and himself to a degree, when have you ever heard KD speak out against Kyrie?
Never.
Okay.
Right. You did all this work to get these two superstars to your team. Even if you weren't crazy about the idea of Kyrie and that was just the cost of doing business with KD. Jay, I remember very clearly, without James Harden, KD and Kyrie were embarrassing the eventual champion Bucks. KD and Kyrie. You got them both on your team. There are no more restrictions in terms of vaccinations, everything, because Kyrie refused to get vaccinated. Nevertheless, that is no longer an issue. You got them both here. They're kind of due for a healthy season. You're going to start messing around now?
At the end of the day, I mean, if you want to lessen the number of years to a degree, or there's stipulations about games played, and yesterday when we had Bobby Marks, he's like, hey, look, games played, minimum amount, 60 games.
67, that's 80% of the games.
Or something like that. Yeah, that number, around that number. And I said, well, how about injuries? They go, no, injuries fact. I'm like, I can't do that. I'm not going to sign it. I would never sign that. If I break my ankle, all of a sudden I'm not going to get my money because I didn't hit a minimum of 67 games of an injury that I got while I'm playing. Mm-hmm. So if they could specify things outside of on-court related injuries to off-court things, maybe I think there's middle ground. But at the end of the day, I see them giving him his money. And I don't see Kyrie saying, I'll go play in L.A. for $6 million.
If it was Jay and they didn't guarantee the final 2 years, he'd get on his motorcycle and drive away.
Jeez.
He'd be out of there.
Max.
But that is
cold-blooded.
That's cold-blooded. What did the five fingers?
Cold-blooded.
But that's the truth, because life comes with risk.
Come on.
Living your life comes with risk, let alone like just playing in the NBA, whether it's on court or off. You want the money guaranteed. You want your money if it's not guaranteed, it doesn't really exist.
Listen, here's what I said yesterday. Personally, from a personal standpoint, would I give Kyrie the money? No. But if I had to put my owner's hat on, GM hat on, I'm giving him that money. You look at the odds, right? The odds just came out with Caesars. They're second behind the Golden State Warriors, right? When have the Brooklyn Nets ever been in that position? You can't name it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at a Kevin Durant and I look at a Kyrie Irving, and I know I have an opportunity with a Joe Harris coming back, with a Ben Simmons coming back healthy, and a Steph Curry coming off the bench, I know I have an opportunity to still make it to the NBA Finals and potentially win it. I'm not breaking this duo up. Plus, at the same time, I don't want Kevin Durant feeling some type of way if we go a different direction with Kyrie.
Question. I asked Bobby Marks the same thing. You don't want to guarantee the whole Kyrie contract. By the way, I wouldn't want to either, only because Kyrie, when he says he didn't want to make it about him, Jay, I believe that. But I think if he saw the bigger picture, he clearly wants to be a part of something bigger than himself, and he's willing to sacrifice himself for that bigger thing, right? So you could talk about George Floyd, you could talk about protests, you could talk about not getting a very safe and effective vaccine, but okay, he has his feelings about it. the point is he's willing to. So if I'm a team, I'm nervous. Number one, you might get injured. He's also been hurt. Number two, the next calls will come around. You'll attach yourself to. But
I just want to state, like, he wasn't the only NBA player that decided not to get vaccinated. There were multiple. I just want to say that.
Understand, but we're talking
him.
Kyrie.
It affected him because he was in the city of New York.
Sure. So, but the point is, some next big issue will come along that he'll sacrifice his professional career for. I'm thinking and want to be part of something bigger than himself. So, Jay, if I'm the team, I don't want to guarantee 4 years. However, if KD comes to me and goes, yo, if you're going to mess with Kyrie, I want out of here. Here, Kyrie, here's your guarantee.
You don't have a choice.
Would you?
You're damn right I would.
So what are we doing here, Jay? What would you do, Jay?
I'm the one that yesterday said I think there's 0% chance that he goes somewhere else. I've already did it this whole conversation, by the way.
So
because at the end of the day, your guy who is the person that the franchise listens to as it relates to the direction of where the franchise is going to go is going to look at you and say, yo, he's one of the main reasons I came here. That is my brother. That's a guy I believe I can win a championship with.
But the fact is they are going down this road with Kyrie. So they are willing to risk the relationship with Durant. Let's say KD at a certain point, they don't get off this nonsense with Kyrie, and KD's like, I want out. And he went somewhere else, because the thrust of Woj's, or one of the interesting points in Woj's piece, is other teams want this to go on so that KD becomes untethered to the Nets. What about that side of it?
Especially the small market teams.
What about that side of it, Jay?
But here's my thing with the Nets, though, right? You can't all of a sudden, be lenient with these two guys, or Kyrie per se, and then all of a sudden now you want to try to play hardball with them. It don't work like that. That's like when you have a child and you're lenient with your child, but when the child turns 6 years old, you want to be that hardcore parent. It doesn't work like that. They're going to sit there and laugh at you.
But I want to look at Kyrie.
Let's come back.
So we're talking about the hypothetical that if Kyrie decides to leave, you're saying, what should KD do?
Or like, it's just interesting. If KD wants out, where could he go? Where would he go? Where would make the most sense? Who could get him?
Two things, right? Number one, obviously, depends upon the relationship that KD has with Joe Tsai and Sean Marks. That if he actually acquiesced and he said, okay, we can't get Kyrie, who else could we get in return? Let's make some moves. So number one, staying in Brooklyn, seeing if you could work through that with those guys, because you have a culture, it's beginning to become established.
I want KD in Brooklyn. I live in New York. I'd love, the Knicks have always let me down. I'd love to see the Nets win.
But if you end up saying, hey, I want Kyrie, and you can't find middle ground with Sean Marks and Joe Tsai, and they decide to get rid of Kyrie, I would tell you from a fan perspective, I would love to see this, because I've now watched him in Golden State, and with that franchise, with that management, from Joe Lakeups to Bob Myers to Steve Kerr, I would really love to see KD play for the Miami Heat. I would, I know that some people are going to say, I would love to. I know some people are going to say you can't do that. Because you would see him follow in the footsteps of LeBron James. But at the end of the day, people are going to criticize KD
regardless.
Man,
regardless whatever he wants to do.
LeBron's been gone from Miami for a decade.
And to see him be part of that dog mentality that they have in Miami,
I love
that kind of fits the culture of and actually have a coach in Eric Spoelstra who's been there, who's done that before.